Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Because Life Can Be a Niche podcast. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and this month we had the opportunity to sit down with Heather Smith. Heather is a medical social worker supervisor at a local hospital here in Metro Atlanta, and she's also a licensed clinical social worker as well. We had a conversation about this very powerful topic, and while we amplify suicide prevention in the month of September, it's worth a conversation year-round. So please take a listen and join us to learn more, and hopefully you'll stick around to the end to see what you can do as well in this effort. Thanks so much for coming into the living room. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the living room. I am so pleased to have my Sora, my sister, Heather Smith, join us for this conversation. It's a serious topic that has really hit home for a lot of people in a big way, and one that is definitely relevant for us to have and to start having more conversations about it. As many of you know, this is National Suicide Prevention Month. And we have, I would probably guess and say everyone watching may have been touched in some way by suicide. And so I just want to welcome you, Heather, to talk about this. We've been talking about this back and forth for a while in trying to come together to share. But, you know, I would just turn it over to you to really just give us like a overview of this month, what it means, and where we are right now as a society.
Well, first, let me say thank you so much for having me on your show. It is my pleasure. Thank you for your patience with me, as this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but life is happening for both of us, and we just have to slow down long enough to do the things that we need to do. But it was perfect. It ended up being perfect timing, because September is the month that you really want to dedicate to awareness and making sure that people understand what it entails, what leads people to suicide, to even thinking about it. So I look forward to this conversation. There's a lot of statistics, and I'll cover some of those. There's a lot going on. The CDC, just so you know, they get their numbers every 2 years. So the latest statistics is from 2020. So everything that I'm talking about this evening, it's going to be from 2020. And hopefully soon, the statistics have not yet come out for last year. So hopefully, you know, we'll hear something soon. But yeah, in 2020, 45,979 Americans died by suicide. Now, there's something that I want to say first. Language matters. So we no longer say committed suicide. We say died by suicide. So it's important that we remember that, to help remove the stigma that's associated with suicide, and people who've thinking about suicide, people who have attempted suicide, and people who have died by suicide. And one of the things that you said is so true. And I would be remiss. I don't think that there's anybody that has not been touched by suicide in some way. You know, whether it is that you know someone who's lost a loved one who died by suicide, or whether you know someone who has attempted suicide, or even had, you know, thoughts about suicide. It is definitely something that has touched every American, and it is very important that we know the risk factors, that we know what we need to do if a friend calls you up and they're thinking about suicide. how to help people. And I think that's important. And hopefully we can, cover some of that today. There's a lot of information. So hopefully we'll be able to get to what we need to get to, but you're leading it. So I'm going to let you guide me.
Well, I will definitely do that, because I do want to get to all of those pieces. I think this is critical for us right now. So I will just start with, I guess the first part of it is, where are we seeing suicide most? I mean, that's a lot. The number 45,000 is very big. Is there a demographic that's more than others?
Yeah. So suicide, actually, the rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men.
Okay.
White males account for 69.68% of suicide deaths in 2020. Okay. On average, we have 125 suicides per day in the United States. It is definitely I think it was the second leading cause of death for people between the ages of 15 and 24 in 2020. Middle-aged adults, 35 through 64, accounts for 47% of all suicides in the United States. So it definitely touches it touches all races, all ethnicities. It's not just one, it touches everybody.
Yeah, that is so prevalent in hearing those numbers. And then the demographics, there's really nothing, I guess, or any factor that says, oh, well, it's particularly one. I know we're talking about 2020 in terms of those statistics. They're not even accounting for what people experienced during the pandemic.
And I was going to mention that, it will be very interesting to see what those statistics look like, because I feel like I've heard about so many people who died by suicide during the pandemic for various reasons. And it will be very interesting to see how COVID impacted those statistics.
You're right. In terms of just before COVID and the pandemic, what were some of the factors that may be documented? Has there been an increase in anxiety or pressure just in general in life? Is there anything that's accounting for?
So there's a lot of risk factors that you want to look that you want to look for. Previous suicide attempts is a high risk. Like if it's something that someone has been thinking about, it's a higher risk for that person. Depression, anxiety, hopelessness, substance abuse, alcoholism, the death of a loved one, the loss of a very influential person, in your life, the loss of a major relationship, students who may have been expelled from school or have gotten in trouble with the law and they're on probation. It's just again, family problems, financial problems, bullying, medical diagnosis for a terminal illness. So it's just a lot. Mental disorders. There's a lot that goes into, the risk factors and why people would choose to die by suicide.
You and I talked about this a little bit, and like what to look for. How do you even know? Because so often I hear people say they seem fine.
Right.
No one knew. They were always happy. This person was the life of the party. People are sometimes just taken by surprise and caught off guard when that does happen. So what should we look for?
So it's hard, right? It's difficult, and it's because we all have issues. We all have things that we're going through. We all have moments of sadness and sometimes feeling hopeless. So some of the things that I just mentioned, I think that we as a society should be more aware. Like when somebody is going through, like, making sure that they're okay. Somebody that's handling a lot of loss back to back. It doesn't mean that, they're necessarily thinking about suicide, but those are the things that we as their loved ones can keep in mind and keep our finger on the pulse of. Some of the behavioral warning signs, people always say, like you said, like, I didn't know what can I look for? People that talk about wanting to die, people that are looking for a way to kill themselves, because you'll have people that may say, hey, I'm looking for a gun. And, oftentimes I think that this is how people are reaching out, and they really want help, but don't know how to really go about it. Men, I'd like to share that men are more successful with suicide. There are 3 female attempts for 1 male attempt. And the reason that males are more successful is because they typically use a firearm. More than half of the suicides are used by firearms. The second leading cause of suicide is suffocation or hanging. And for women, the leading cause is poisoning, taking pills. So there's definitely, different ways. But when someone is preoccupied with, with death, if you are speaking to a friend and they're not sleeping enough, or they're sleeping too much, someone who may be giving away their prized possessions, those things that are dear to them, and they're starting to give things away. Those are all things that you can, be looking for. Those are warning signs, behavioral warning signs. If they're anxious, depressed, those are all things that we can hone in on and start making sure that people are okay, asking those questions.
That is, you bring up something that really hit home for me, in that checking on people who've experienced a tremendous amount of loss. So it will be interesting after the statistics come about the pandemic, because some of us lost so many people.
Right.
And the toll that must have taken and must be taking people who are really trying to wrap their minds around the gravity of that, around something that I think we entered into in March. I'll never forget it, in March of 2020. And it started off as one case here and a little bit there, and don't worry about it. And then before we knew it, by April, our children were at home with us, and life changed. People were no longer socializing and going to offices. And that really has changed the way we operate in terms of, and even our social cues. Is different. You mentioned something about men being more successful. Is there a reason why? Is it because of the choice of guns, which tend to lead to final? Okay.
Right. It's the method. The firearms are the most common way amongst males, as I mentioned before, and it's over half of the it accounts for over half of the suicide deaths.
So what should we do even if you're not in a close relationship with that person, like a coworker or, a neighbor, you notice a change, you hear them say things that aren't in character for them. I mean, what can we do?
I think that's a good question. And I think the number one thing is to let them know that you care, because so many people that die by suicide felt that nobody cared. And it's important if you just be kind. I think your shirt says kindness matters. And yeah, and just be, that's so true. Just be kind. But you're asking questions and you're direct. You want to avoid vague language. You want to allow the person the time to talk. You want to listen to what they're saying. And some of the ways to ask direct questions, like some examples of a direct question is, do you want to end your life? Are you thinking about suicide?
Just come out like that.
Just come out like that. Are you thinking about killing yourself? I'm going to share a story with you that just happened a few weeks ago. And obviously I'm not going to share the name, but one of my friends sent a text message to me, and she said that she was tired. It just said, I'm tired. And I immediately started to engage, right? That's what you want to do. Engage immediately.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you have going on. Stop and give those few moments, because if you don't, and you realize that this person was reaching out to you, that's going to be a hard pill for you to swallow, for you to know that they were reaching out to you and you were too busy to give them the attention that they needed. So I jumped in the car and I sped over to her house. And she was broken. She was in the middle of a breakdown. And I held her, I hugged her, I prayed, I spoke to her. It wasn't all nice. There was some tough love, when I was telling her, no, I'm about to take you to the hospital. Put your clothes on right now. Like, very direct, but loving. There wasn't an attitude. There was not, I wasn't angry. I was concerned. So I asked those questions. You want to find out, like, if you were to die by suicide, how would you do it? And then when they tell you, you begin to remove those things. If they say, oh, I'm just going to take some pills, you take the pills. If they say, I'm going to slit my wrists, you put away the knives. If they say, I'm going to blow my head off, you remove the gun. Like, those are the actions to take in order to really help somebody. But yeah, you ask those questions, be very direct. There's no room for error. It's just make sure that you're direct. And then if they say yes, okay, so you've asked the question, right? If they say yes, what do? You take it seriously. So many people think, okay, such and such trying to get some attention, and then they're found, right? Oh, it can't be that bad. You judge their pain, not understanding how they really feel. So take it seriously. It's better to err on the side of caution than not do what you're supposed to do for them if they've reached out to you. Acknowledge their pain, because to even have thoughts of suicide, which is called suicidal ideations, if you've ever heard that, it's thoughts of suicide. To be having suicidal ideations, someone has to be in a lot of pain to be there. So you acknowledge their pain, and don't try to, as society, one of the things that we do is we try to fix people's problems.
Yep.
Don't try to fix their problems, but support them and help them to find the resources that they need. Find out what's going on and find, the resources that they need. But definitely you want to ask questions and be very, very direct with them.
What if you, and that's great advice, because I never thought about the direct approach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're just in a very polite society too, where it's kind of like you don't want to pry in people's business and that's their business. Stay out of it. We don't always go right in.
Mm-hmm.
You make a great point. What about for those of us who you sense something, but that person is nowhere near? You can't get to them. They're in another state or they're far away. They may be a place where there's no circle of friends that you can even call on. What should you do?
If you truly feel that the person is suicidal, you're going to call 911 for them. Okay. And send help to their home, or you can give them the suicide hotline number, and it's 988 now.
Okay.
It's an easy number to remember it, and they no longer call it the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's now the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
That's important, and we're going to drop that in the show notes, because I want people to write that down.
Right.
Sometimes we do. If you think back, people may drop hints, even in a joking way.
Right.
And now though, I don't know if we can, like you said, we can't err on that side anymore. You have to seriously spinning that a little bit and talking about our youth and the increasing numbers of young people. And when I say young people, I saw a special here on the local news in Atlanta. It broke my heart. I mean, it's really, I think I might have sent you the message like after I watched that, like, I want to talk about this.
Right.
It was a 6-year-old child who, I want to say this right, died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
6 years old. And then on that same special, there's a 13-year-old, and then there was a 11-year-old, and some of it was bullying. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was bullying. And then, but you wonder, like, where the children get the wherewithal to do something so final. But it really moved me. One, because this was a special about Black children and the increasing numbers in our communities.
Wow.
What do we do when it's our babies?
The same thing you do for the adults. You have to try to make sure that people understand that you care. When someone begins to have suicidal ideations, a lot of times they're feeling like a failure. They're feeling tired. They don't know what to do, whether it's bullying, whether it's financial, whether they've lost a loved one. They just don't know how to handle, those emotions in that moment. And the pain that they're experiencing is so great that they just want it to end. And they feel like it's better to be dead than to live through the pain. So as a society, we have to keep the lines of communication open. We have to make it okay for our children to feel comfortable talking to us and letting us know, what's going on. We as adults, we're going to talk, since we're talking about children specifically in this moment, I want to say that a lot of times as parents and adults, we have so much going on. We're doing this and that, and we're so busy, and we're caught up in in life. Let's just say that we're caught up in life and the problems of life that we may not listen to what they're saying. And We may minimize what they're saying. They have a problem at school, such and such is talking about me. Or it may be, oh, you'll be okay. Just ignore them. That's not very helpful for somebody that's in a lot of pain and going through. So you want to make sure that you're listening, the lines of communication are open, and you're creating a space where our children feel comfortable coming and being honest and sharing their heart with us, and not feeling like mommy and daddy are just, they're not going to do anything. I've been saying something for the last, whatever. But also know there's a lot of people who die by suicide that they never share with anybody what they're going through. So it's hard, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm. That's such a strong, powerful point, because as a mom, I have been busy, just super busy. And it's very easy, like you said, to try to fix the problem.
Right.
Somebody's picking on me. Someone's talking about me. And, I remember when somebody was picking on me and blah, 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 blah. And
exactly.
Situation, we insert ourselves to try to give an example, but you raised a powerful point. That's not helping. That's now putting you in
it feels minimizing. Yes. Have you ever had a situation personally and you're trying to talk about it and you just, you call your friend and you're like, okay, this is, oh, well, I know. And they keep talking about themselves. And it's like, okay, I understand that. And you know what? It's all with good intention, because people want to make you feel like they understand, but sometimes it's just best to listen to what they're saying and not monopolize the conversation and not try to give examples of, oh, when this happened to you, because first of all, it's a different time.
Yes.
Right. It's definitely a different time. I think that when we were growing up, we were more playing outside as children, going outside and playing, and the socialization was much greater than the socialization is now, because you have so many more children playing video games or on Instagram, on social media, and behind a computer, and they're not doing a lot of face-to-face interaction like we did, in the past. And I really feel like that impacts some of the ways our children are able to handle issues. And it's a different time.
It is. And that is so important that you say that, because my children both have some type of device. They both have iPhones. One of them has an iPad, and a lot of their socialization happens in Snapchat and
exactly.
They're not even really, you might see people at school, but they really have more conversation through a device. And what about when you see each other? They barely talk.
Exactly.
They'll be grouped up together walking. I've seen them when they go off and they don't want to be seen with me, and they'll sit at football games and they're just sitting as if they don't even know each other.
Right.
Get home and be on that device. And it's like, didn't you just see them 30 minutes ago? Why were you all not interacting? Right. So which means they're not even reading each other's cues to check on buddy, even because they're not having that in person. They're comfortable behind a screen.
Exactly.
It is a different time for sure. What do you say? I know you said if someone has attempted before, but is there anything that we can do for someone who just seems just not themselves? They don't admit that they are having ideations of suicide. They're not coming forth. They're going through a lot because you just may happen to know, I know that's a lot on. How do you get them to trust you enough to share what they're really going through? Is that even possible when someone holds things so close to the vest?
I think it's going to depend on the person. There are some people who are going to want people, they kind of want help, right? They're seeking out, they may not know how to go about it. They may be embarrassed, they may feel judged. So just, some of the things that we already talked about, let them know that you care. If you ask them, if you're direct and they say no, like, no, I'm not thinking about suicide. Okay, that's fine. But still, that's good. Let me say, not fine, that's good. Whatever it is that they're going through, though, you still want them to know that you care. You want to be empathetic towards them. You want to keep the lines of communication open. You want to check in on them. I must say, ma'am, you do a very good job with checking in on people when they're going through. And I am a recipient of that. And I want to thank you for that, because, you can know that I'm going through something, and out of the blue, I'll just get a text message. I'm praying for you. How are you doing? You always let me know that you care. And those are the kinds of things, that's the same skill set that's needed for people who may be suicidal, who people may be having suicidal ideations, to just let them know that you care, keep those lines of communication open, keep connecting with them, keep making sure that they know that you're available, that you're there for them. Ask again. It's okay to ask again. Have you thought about suicide? Have you ever, ask those questions? If someone says to you, yes, they have, definitely ask how. If you were to do it, how would you do it? If they say, oh, I'm just going to take medicine, do you have the medicine? What medicine would you take? And remove it. Like, if you can find a loved one, if you're not in the same area, just try and remove whatever it is from them that that they've admitted to you that they would be using the method. Also give resources. That's very, very important, because even someone may not tell you that they are thinking about suicide because they know you. But if you give them the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, they may call and talk to a stranger, because it's easier, right? They won't feel as judged. They won't feel like you're going to go and tell my mom or friends or mutual people. This is a more objective person, someone that's further removed, and they may feel more comfortable doing that. So, okay, I know you said you haven't thought about it, which is great. If you ever think about it and you don't feel like you can share it with me, call 988. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
That is, basically you're saying we have to be bold.
We do.
We have to be bold with people.
Right.
Nothing timid about it. What do you say for those of us who have experienced loss? What do you do? There's a tremendous amount of guilt there, for those who are very close to the person, feeling like, oh, I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda, I didn't see, I didn't know. Often the wake of the pain that's left for those who are living is hard. What do you say?
The number one thing that I want people to know, it is not your fault. Guilt will try to overtake you. Of course, as you said, we do the what would have happened if, I wish that I had have done this or that, but at the end of the day, it is important to remember that that was the decision of that person.
Mm.
And that's hard, especially for people who have lost a loved one. I have several friends that have um, lost a child who have died by suicide. And it's hard. It's hard to know what to say because it hurts. And I think it's okay to acknowledge their pain. And the same thing that goes for everyone else. Keep those lines of communication open. Let them know that you care. Let them know that you're praying for them if, if they need prayer, right? Or if they believe in prayer is what I should say. Let them know that they're in your thoughts. Encourage them to seek out a therapist. That's very important for them to try to peel the layers of that grief, for them to think about, there may be a lot of things that come up when someone has died by suicide. And there may be things that have been revealed to you that you missed, but it's still not your fault. And that is what I want people to take away. Anyone who has experienced the death of a loved one by suicide, it's not your fault. And it's important to know that.
That is, I think you just dropped a whole word there. Because guilt will get us in any situation. Yep. Guilt is a tricky, sneaky emotion that can wreak a lot of havoc. Is there anything that we've missed that you want people to really let sink down in their soul about suicide, about prevention, recognizing, being a support?
Well, I think it's important for the stigma of suicide to be removed. There's such a stigma associated with suicide, and it leads to people who have lost loved ones by suicide. It leads to embarrassment. It leads to feelings of guilt. It leads to feelings of resentment. There's just so much that comes along with that. And I think as a society, we need to embrace those people and we need to let them know that we love them. We're here for them. It is not their fault. Remember, one of the situational warning signs is death and loss of a loved one. So it's always important to remember that anybody could be at risk, right? For having those thoughts, especially if you've lost somebody and that pain, your own pain is so great, and you may think, I just want to go and be with them. So it's important to wrap your arms around your loved ones, the people who have experienced that loss, any loss, because you never know what kind of pain they're in and what that may lead them to start thinking about as well. And I didn't mention this before, which was very surprising to me when I read it. The geography in rural areas, the instances of suicide is greater than in the major city, in a big city. And that was very surprising to me. And I think it's important to know that. But the suicide rates are higher in rural areas. As the population decrease, the suicide rates increase. And this is due to a lack of resources in those areas, right? So they can't go to the therapist. They don't have the resources as a big city would that would help to deal with the depression, the anxiety, the financial stress, whatever it is that's contributing to the feelings of depression and hopelessness that leads to suicide, that the rural areas lack that. They lack those things.
That makes so much sense because I'm from a very small town. And I do remember even when, and it's a stigma, even with getting counseling or even, that, well, it used to be, it's not as much anymore, but it used to be. And I just remember hearing, stories of people driving all the way to Macon, Georgia, or to Albany,
Trying
Georgia,
to find the help.
to find help, and we're talking about 50 miles one way.
Right.
So you're right. I can see that being a really big factor for those who don't have the resources. Now, in terms of those who, let's say you do have access to the resources, but you don't necessarily know how to make that first step. What do you say to those who, we have the hotline, we have resources in schools, we have them at our, some in our workplaces, but you just feel stuck?
Yeah, a lot of times people feel very alone and they feel like others don't understand. And all we can do is all we can do. And we can try to support people the best way we know how. If we know that someone is very stressed out, let's help teach them how to manage their stress, right? Let's talk to them about, well, what have you done? Like, what are some things that you're doing to relax? What are some things that you're doing? How are you caring for yourself? Oh, you like massages? Girl, let's go get a massage. That's helpful, right? And I'm not saying getting a massage is going to, fix everybody's problems, but remember, we're not trying to fix problems, right? We're trying to help people manage, and whatever that stress is, we want them to find ways to manage that stress, whatever problem they have. What is some problems? So how are their problem solving skills? Do they like pets? You know what? Pets are a huge protection. It's a protective factor. Pets help a lot. And it offers people who aren't afraid of pets. Let me say that.
You don't want to get a pet and be running around the house terrified. That's a whole nother set of issues.
That's a whole nother podcast. But no, we have to peel the layers, sometimes help people peel the layers and find out what it is they're doing. How are you taking care of yourself? Being understanding. I know that you're going through a lot right now. I know that you're dealing with a lot. You've had a lot of losses, or you've had a lot going on. Like, what are you doing for yourself? Make time for those people. Are you available? Let's go get something to eat. And those small actions, even just a text message, those will help people know that you're there and that you care. And I can't stress that enough, because we all get so caught up in what we have to do and what's going on that it's easy to miss things. It's easy for us to think about someone, but we don't let them know that we're thinking about them. And there's a difference. It makes a difference when you let them know, hey, you're on my mind. I'm thinking about you. Just so people won't feel so alone, and they'll know that you are there, you're there for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the key is, and I'm guilty. I will literally have a thought about someone, and I'll be working and I'll say, oh, such and such on my mind. I may say a prayer, but a prayer to
reaching out.
Yes.
Reaching out so that they will know that you're thinking about them. There are times when I may text the prayer to somebody just to let them know, instead of saying I'm praying for you. Well, here's the prayer, just letting people know that you care. I might send something in the mail to someone. Amazon is the best. because it takes out so much of the hard work in our busy lives. It's so easy to send somebody something from Amazon. And how does that feel when out of the blue, you just, oh my gosh, they were thinking about me. It's a feeling of importance. Like, wow, like they really were thinking about me. So I just say we have to do a better job of loving people, of letting them know that we love them, of caring about people. My pastor always say, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care.
So true. That is
important.
It is. And I'm a recipient of a surprise Amazon. I have my fan. I was like, oh, I mean, love it. And I mean, it wasn't even, and I wasn't even expecting it. So when I got it in the mail, I was like, I got a package. Oh, and it lifted my mood. It just changed my whole outlook on the rest of the day. My kids, Mommy, why did you get a gift? Mommy, what happened? I was like, because somebody loves me.
That's right. Just because. And those are the best, just because, especially when someone is having a hard time, if somebody is feeling down, how does it feel if you are feeling that nobody cares and nobody understands, and all of a sudden you get a candle in the mail, or a fan, or whatever it is, just something. And it's just like, oh, wow, like they thought about me.
Yep.
It's important to do that.
I think we start a movement today. I think anybody listening today, or tonight, whenever you listen to this or you watch it, find 3 people. So I always like to do 3 confirmations.
Yes.
People in your circle or outside of your circle, who you recognize, and do something out of the blue, thoughtful for them. Because you're right, that's the thing we can do when we're afraid to say anything. Because some people are not that bold. Some people are nervous and that. But any of them, we can go on Amazon, or we can go somewhere,
absolutely,
order something and have some fruit delivered or something, some edible fruit or whatever. There's something that we can do. I mean, this is the month. I think you say we amplify the message.
Absolutely,
do that, but we can start that kindness, passing it on, showing that we care and that we are in our thoughts.
And sis, if as a society, if we did more random acts of kindness, I remember I was at Krispy Kreme because the hot sign was on, and I was at Krispy Kreme.
Time to go.
And I've done this several times. I did it more when the kids were younger because I wanted to teach them about giving and not needing to have to be acknowledged. And I would pay for the people in the drive-through behind me. And I remember one day, this lady, she flagged me down because I had pulled over and I was kind of getting my stuff together. And she's like flashing the lights. She's flashing the lights. And she pulled up. She was like, "Did you pay for my stuff?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." She was like, "Why?" I said, "Because I wanted to." She just got this look on her face. And she said, "I'm going to do the same thing. The next drive-through line I'm in, I'm going to do the same thing." And I just think that this world would be such a different place if we did more random acts of kindness for people that we know, as well as people who we don't know. It would just be a better place.
I agree 100%. It's a game changer.
Right.
It's someone's whole mood when
absolutely
they do something. So we're going to definitely put that. I don't know how to turn my watch off from ringing when I'm on. I was like, I can turn my phone off. I have not my watch. Off. But anyway, they're all somewhere. I locked them away so they wouldn't be noisy for this. That alone, I really think we have an opportunity.
Right.
to take something to really step in a way where we're doing something that may impact in a way that's so powerful beyond anything you could even imagine. See, to you,
Absolutely.
a box of donuts, you covered a box of donuts.
Mhm.
That changed the game for the person.
Mhm.
And then they passed it on. And then we continue to do that.
Right.
And you said something very important. And I know we're gonna, wrap this conversation soon. You said something very important about where we are as a society. Do you think we got better in the pandemic, or did we fall behind in how we socialize and connect?
This is one of those answers where two things can be true at the same time. I think in some ways we got better, right? I think in some ways during the pandemic, because we were indoors, we spent more time together as a family. We focused on what's important. But in the same regard, there were so many people that were isolated, that did not have a family or friends or people checking on them. So two things can be true at the same time. That's why seeing the statistics for the last 2 years is going to be it's going to be very important to kind of keep our finger on
talking to another friend, and and always this person's always so jovial and so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
But when we had an opportunity to actually talk one-on-one, they shared that it's been really hard to get back into society,
right?
Because many of us had discovered that we like being alone.
Right.
Right.
People don't even want to go to work anymore. They want to work from home.
It's almost like it just kind of just became this own little world that we created that was perfect for us at that time. And because we had no choice,
right,
you had to love it, or you had to accept it. And so 2 years in after the fact, and it's like, okay, come on, we're waiting. And you're just like,
Yeah. I said in April of 2020, I said there is going to be a huge psychological component to how COVID impacts people. And if you watch the news, I feel like, I don't have statistics, but I feel like I've heard about more people getting shot, more people getting killed. I know we're talking about suicide, but in thinking about just the psychological component of how COVID impacted people, there's so much going on. There's so much senseless killings, deaths, and it's just, I think that's what two things can be true at one time. I feel like some people went crazy in the isolation, when they were behind closed doors. Some people used it as a time to better themselves, to focus on the things that were important, but you don't have everyone that has families and loved ones. So you have some people who it feels like they're now lashing out at the world. There's so many random shootings, and it's insane. So yeah, it definitely impacted society.
And so I think we're going to see a lot of studies.
Yes.
So I was literally just watching the news with my mom. I can't even say I had the time to watch the news. She was giving me a recap because that's what she does. No, down at such and such. Tell me what happened from the news. Right. And that we noticed was that there was a random shooting, like someone driving down the highway. Like, I think this might have been in Tennessee, and just started opening fire. And then the same thing happened maybe in Georgia. And then we turned on the news the other day. There was a shooting in the mall. And I'm like, I said, have you noticed there's been a whole lot of shootings with no motive? Like, there's not a target. Like, there's not beef between people. It's literally like, I'm going to brandish my weapon and I'm just going to start firing away, and whoever gets hit.
Right.
So I think you're right. I think it has two things can be true at the same time. It brought the best in some of us and made us reflect a lot, give us a lot of introspect. And then for others, it may have been so isolated and alone that you just anger brewed.
Right.
We don't even know how to act. And instead of just, where it used to be, you might flip somebody off on the highway. Now you just pull out your gun.
Right. And it's, it's to the point where, because I might have a little bit, I may or may not have a little bit of road rage. So I may or may not be one of those people that will be driving and fussing and going by and, why did you? I don't do that anymore. I can't. Yes. Because people are crazy and they out here shooting folks. They are. So I'm just mad to myself.
And I did that this morning and I knew better. Someone they were just driving slow, and then they stopped in the middle of the road to turn, and they almost hit somebody head on, but then we almost hit them as a result. And then I blew my horn.
You just reacted.
I'm like, dude, you're gonna get killed. You're gonna kill somebody. They blew my horn back, and then I blew mine back. Like, so our horns are arguing now. And my sons are like, Mommy, you never do that. You told us don't ever do anything to provoke anybody. And I was like, oh, I did. I said, y'all check and see. Mommy might have to gun it. Because we can't play like that.
Right. It's definitely a different time.
That is so true. We don't really know what people are going through. And I think that really brings this whole conversation together, is that we may not know what people are going through.
Absolutely.
Definitely step our game up as humans to pay more attention to people, especially those in our own fight in our front of our faces.
Right. Give people grace.
Grace.
Give people grace.
Because you don't know what news they had. You don't know what happened to cause anything,
And it's important to remember. And if we're going to end with this, I think it's appropriate. It's important to remember that everybody is dealing with something.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody. Extend grace. Let people know you care. Let people know that you love them. Let people know that you're there. And keep the lines of communication open with your friends and family. And just make sure that you ask those hard questions, or you, send them a gift to just let them know that you're still on my mind. You're still in my heart. So I'm going to take you up on your challenge. I'm going to find 3 people by Friday, and I am going to do something to let them know that they are being thought of. And I'm going to let you know what I've done.
Yes, I'm going to do the same.
Okay.
No, we let's make sure we're not thinking about the same people.
We could be.
But absolutely.
But you know what? It's okay. If that person get 2 things, that means that God put those people on our hearts, and they'll receive 2 things, and it's okay, or whatever that is.
That's right. That might be even better. That'll be
right.
We challenge you, if you're watching right now, we challenge you. This is National Suicide Prevention Month is September, but being human, being present, being involved in the lives of those who are close to you and maybe not, being kind to strangers is something we can do 24/7, 365. So we challenge you out there, tag us, post, when you see this, post and let us know did it. We don't have to know what, but let us know
you did something.
Yes, yeah,
Awesome.
we're gonna start a thing. We're gonna start a thing.
That's right. That's right.
So much for coming on the podcast. I so appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Thank you for thinking about this back in January, right? Thank you for thinking about this very, very important conversation. And it's never too late to have it. You know, we've been through our stuff over the last few months, but it's never too late to have this conversation. And it landed at the right time, because this is what we want to bring awareness to: suicide, death by suicide, suicide ideations, suicide attempts. We want people to know that this is a real issue. And there are small things that we can all do to help make the world a better place. It may not stop everybody from dying by suicide, but if everyone just does their part, we will make the world a better place.
And that does perfectly see it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for trusting me with this very important conversation. And I appreciate you so much, and everything that you do as a mom, as a soon-to-be wife.
I'm doing it like this because my nails aren't done. I'm like,
as a daughter, as a soror, I mean, as a friend, as a cousin, like, you are an amazing woman. And I just want to thank you for everything that you do and how you give of yourself and your time to everybody. So thank you, my dear.
You are more than welcome. You're trying to make my eyes sweat, but I will not allow that.
Not at all. Not at all. Just I want to make sure you can smell your roses.
I do. And I've told you this before. You lead by example. And I say, I want to be like you when I grow up. So thank you for leading the way and showing us how to love others, because I am emulating what I see you do so beautifully and so wonderfully and so passionately all the time. So
thank you.
With that said, I love you. I'm almost about to cry, so I'm gonna end the call.